just a few years ago, a strong woman told us all that it takes a village. And I think we all agree with that. But a village has to have a chief. And for the last 2 years, that chief has been Karen Berman. So I'm very aware that she has, it is on her watch that the Fellows has transitioned into strictly an honorific organization to what it is now. It will always be an honorific primarily for many people, and that is the reason it was founded. But there are now things to do as well, largely through our advocacy efforts and through now our increasing philanthropic efforts. So that we will always look back and say, as Bob said, it started at the very end, and Karen has seen us through that transition. So I want to thank Karen for her service. We have a tradition here. She will receive this plinth for her service, and I can't tell you what to do with it, but I would suggest you put it. I would suggest you put it somewhere where Paul can see it from time to time, because we know he has been a large part of your tenure as well. And finally, I would just say that Karen's tenure with us is further evidence that sometimes the best man for the job is a woman.
Thank you all so much. This is gorgeous, gorgeous.
In 1978, Valdez wrote and directed his most critically a commercial success to date, Zoot Suit, which he adapted into a motion picture in 1981. In 1986, he wrote and directed the very successful film La Bamba. Valdez continues to work on films and plays inspiring the next generation of theater artists. In 2017, he directed the revival of Zoot Suit, where it all began at the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles, California, to great critical acclaim, proving that this play is truly a classic. Luis will direct his next play, Valley of the Heart, at the Mark Taper this fall. Valdez has been the recipient of many national and international awards, including honorary Doctorate of Arts degrees from several universities. It is my great honor and pleasure to present a mentor and friend, Dr. Luis Valdez.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes? Good morning. It's a privilege and an honor for me to be here with my colleagues, representing the whole country. It is the fulfillment, really, of a lifelong dream to assimilate, integrate, and participate in the United States of America and America as a whole. Amazing that we're here in the Kennedy Center. This is an amazing building, an institution. It's been here really since the time that the Teatro was founded, over 50 years. And I want to analyze those 50 years in a very special way, acknowledging that I worked for John Kennedy's campaign, the Viva Kennedy campaign in 1960. I was 20. You couldn't vote in California if you were 20. You had to be 21 in 1960. But nevertheless, we did precinct work and met the candidate in San Jose and presented him. I was part of an organization called MAPA, the Mexican-American Political Association. So we presented him with a gilded sombrero and urged him to put it on. And John Kennedy, being John Kennedy, said, no, he demurred, said, I'm going to wait until the St. Patrick's Day parade in New York, and I appreciate that. Of course, his assassination changed all our lives. It changed my life. It politicized me in ways that I never expected. Another milestone, perhaps, for me was some years back, and again, thinking of 20 years and thinking of institutions and giants in the field. I was on the days with David Packard, and of Hewlett-Packard fame in Silicon Valley. And he was sitting there, and I said, Mr. Packard, it's an honor for me to be here with you. I want you to know we share something. We both started in a garage. The difference is I'm still there. And that's really important, you know, the fact that we're still in a packing shed in San Juan Bautista. It has been our theater now for over 30 years, but it continues to do work. The emphasis is always on the performer, always on the material, always on the new plays, rather than the building itself. We can't afford it all. I wish we could have a big building like this, you know, but here it is. Why not? Use it. And the Teatro has performed down the hall in the Terrace Theater here some years back. But I want to put my comments into perspective because 50 years is a long time. How can you measure? How can you analyze? How can you break that down and make sense of it? And we decided a couple of years ago that El Teatro Campesino was going to celebrate its 50th anniversary, which was in 2015, but continue for 2 years. So we had a 52-year cycle to really coincide with the Aztec century, which is 52 years. The lighting of new fires occurred every 52 years in Mexico, in ancient America. So I'm going to really talk in terms of 52 years. And I'm going to break those 52 years down into 13-year sections. And that's important because it defines really my approach as a playwright. Speaking as a playwright, it informs me as how to understand my own reality as well as my work. And it's really quite simple. It's, I want you to imagine a circle, and then within the circle there's a square. This was called Hunabku. The ancient Maya called that Hunabku, the only giver of movement and life, the creator in the universe. It was a mathematical concept that the Mayans had. And you can take that and break down the 4 walls, and that's what I want to do. But I'm going to do it as a playwright. And the 4 points are P-L-O-T, plot. Plot is not necessarily much regarded these days, but it's still an integral and essential part of the art form because you can't build a play without paying attention to plot. Preparation, P. L is launch, or point of attack. The O is opposition, and T is turn. After the climax, you turn, the denouement. P-L-O-T, P-L-O-T. I use that in order to teach playwriting and to teach screenwriting as well. P-L-O-T, plot is very important. So I want to plot my life and go back. What are my roots? Well, I could go back a long ways. I could go back 2,000 years to the oldest extant play in the Americas. We're all Americans, and I want to welcome you to America. I'm not a minority group, okay? I'm not a recent arrival. I'm not an immigrant. I am a Native American. And we haven't had too much of an opportunity to do that. I'm very happy to be able to do this here in Washington at the Kennedy Center, to proclaim my Americanness, okay? Lupe and I have 3 sons, my wife Lupe, and I have 3 sons. Our youngest, Lakin, which means sunrise, or the rising sun, went to Guatemala just 2 months ago. He flew into Guatemala City, and to a 4-hour bus ride into the mountains to a city called Rabinal, an ancient town called Rabinal. The name of the oldest extant play in the Americas is El Rabinal Achi, which is the warrior of Rabinal. Now, every year, they perform that play in Rabinal. The only way to get there is through that 4-hour bus ride. Even when they had death squads roaming all over the jungle in Guatemala not so long ago, this play went on. So my son, our son, is working on a new play based on that concept, and so he had to go there. And that's one of my antecedents. That's one of my preparations. It goes way back. I could bring it in closer. Let's say 1565. The first theatrical performance in what is now the continental United States occurred on the banks of the Rio Grande, in what is now El Paso, led by Don Juan de Oñate, who was the son of a conquistador, the founder of New Mexico. And they staged 2 plays on horseback. La conversión de los 4 reyes de Tlaxcala, the conversion of the 4 kings of Tlaxcala, and Moros y los Cristianos, the Moors and the Christians. These are 2 classical plays, one of America, for sure, the Tlaxcala play. The other came from Spain. I've seen that version in the Philippines years ago. It's called the Moro Moro there. But these are 2 classic works. Those are also my roots. I could bring it in close. Let me just really bring it down to earth. I was born in 1940 in a labor camp in Delano, California. Delano was established in 1873. There was a recession that year. It was during the Grant administration, a depression almost. And so they were building the Central Pacific Railroad across the San Joaquin Valley in California. And so they ran out of money and just stopped in the middle of nowhere. And the Chinese workers that were working, not to say coolies, the Chinese workers that were working there were just laid off. They said, okay, we are laid off. And they had no place to go. So they camped right beside the railroad. And they waited for a year, to be reemployed. In the meantime, cholera hit, and the Chinese workers started to die precipitously. And they built a cemetery right there. They buried the Chinese workers right by the cemetery. Well, not far from there, 100 yards or so from there, 67 years later, I was born in a labor camp at that place. And so I'm involved in this history of California and the so-called winning of the West. Really, it's the losing of the North for Mexico. The winning of the West was the losing of the North, because what is now the Southwest was half of the national territory of Mexico. So people are trying to get back to where they belong. And some SOB keeps trying to build a wall up there. Okay? And that wall will do no one any good. I keep telling people, look, 2 oceans could not keep people from coming to America. The Wall of China couldn't achieve what it was supposed to achieve. The Rocky Mountains couldn't stop the covered wagons. Why do you believe that this wall is going to stop anybody? You can't stop the essential progress. But anyway, I didn't know this when I was born. 1940, in this labor camp. We all are born somewhere. We look around. We say, who are we? What am I? What can I do? And I didn't know that I was Mexican. I didn't know that I was a farm worker. I didn't know anything at that point. My first memories actually are quite the contrary. I remember that we had a ranch. We had our own little hacienda, 300 acres, with 2 houses and barns. And my dad was a farmer, a very successful farmer, and growing crops. And we had a 1941 Chevrolet sedan. In 1942, we had this. They stopped making these cars during the war, but we had a new car. And I remember a little sticker in the back window. It said, Roosevelt in 44, And I never knew what was happening here. But as I began to become aware for 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, it began to sink into me that this ranch was not my father's ranch. Actually, it had belonged to a Japanese-American farmer. And he and his family were picked up and taken to a relocation camp. And that was my first stab of guilt, that my prosperity during World War II had been at the cost of the loss of all the property that this Japanese farmer, whose name was Yamaguchi, I believe. The 1940 census came out in 2012, and I finally looked it up. Yamaguchi and his daughters and his son and wife were all taken away. The rumor was that he committed suicide somewhere along, and so to add to the guilt, right? But in any case, it was all over by 1946. We were out. My dad was not the owner. He was leased. He was growing crops for the U.S. Army on consignment. And our prosperity was really generated by World War II. So suddenly, at the end of World War II, all the GIs are coming back. The American agriculture is reorganizing. And we were out. We were out in the cold, literally, very quickly. And suddenly, we're back on the migrant path. I had never been on the migrant path. My parents were on the migrant path in the 30s. And suddenly I'm back there with them. I'm 6 years old. And I'm saying, what the hell happened? We used to be rich. We used to have a ranch. What happened? Well, the 41 Chevy went with us into the fields and quickly disappeared. I don't know what happened. I think my dad sold it. We had to. We needed the money. So we had this whole pickup truck. And that's how we began then to tour. And in 1946, then, we went to the Garden of Eden, which is now Silicon Valley, and picked apricots and prunes and strawberries and all of that. Then the fall came, and we went back into the San Joaquin Valley to pick cotton. So I was a cotton picker, okay? I'm not ashamed. I mean, it was a good way of life. It was fun for a kid in some ways. I loved jumping off the cotton rack into the cotton. It was great. But everybody was out in the fields. African-American workers from the grand diaspora from the South were hitting California, and they were doing what they were used to doing, working in the fields in 1946. So there were African-Americans in the field. There were Asians, Japanese-Americans, Chinese-Americans. There were Sikhs from India with their turbans. There were the proverbial Okies. They were still in the fields. And so I thought, well, we're all cotton pickers, you know? We're all equal. You don't see that anymore. Somehow, the American agriculture has become segregated to the extent that it's now mostly Mexicans out in the field. That's something that concerns me because, well, I've still had the Farm Workers Theater after all, you know. But the fact is that the changing demographics of 1946 have led to the changing demographics of today. And one of the things that most people did is they left the fields and went to the city. Except the Mexicans. The Mexicans kept coming and they work in the fields. It's not easy to work in the fields. I didn't know this at the time, but there I am, 6 years old, and we went from the Garden of Eden to this place called Stratford. And there was a large labor camp. It's close to Corcoran. There's a state prison in Corcoran. The growth of prisons, private prisons, state prisons, in California and in Arizona has been phenomenal because, well, phenomenal for us because it's mostly African Americans and Latinos that are inhabiting these prisons. And all those cities support themselves through these prisons. And there's a huge prison in Corcoran where Charlie Manson was there until recently. He died, of course. And Robert Downey Jr. was a guest there not so long ago. And other people. Well, that prison wasn't there. There was a large labor camp. And 2,000 people were in this large labor camp, Army surplus tents. And so the cotton season went like that in a month. Too many hands picking. And so we couldn't move on because my dad's old pickup truck had broken down. So he had it up on blocks. He's trying to get it. And we couldn't move on. We couldn't move on. And, you know, farm workers live from hand to mouth. And so we ran out of money. And there was nowhere else to work because the cotton season was over. So we started living by fishing in the river, the San Joaquin Delta River. And we might fish and take the fish back to my mom, and she would make tortillas, you know, and prepare the fish. And we were eating fish tacos before they were trendy, you know what I mean? But one morning, I almost drowned. I fell in. My dad saved me by grabbing me by the hair and pulling me out. So my mom got very worried. She told me and my brother, I had an older brother, why don't you just go to school? A yellow bus would come into the camp. And so we climbed onto the camp, the bus, and went to the nearby school at Stratford. Not Stratford on Avon, Stratford on the San Joaquin. I knew I wasn't going to be there for very long. I was already bilingual. My parents were bilingual. My family, you know, came from Mexico over 100 years ago. And before that, they'd been coming for generations. Tucson was like our urban center. And they lived maybe 20, 30 miles from the U.S.-Mexican border. So, see, the absurdity of that wall is really amazing to me because these are ancestral lands. And so my parents had been coming, my grandparents had been coming and going, and my great-grandparents had been coming and going. But at that time, then, well, we could no longer can't do that now, for sure. But in any case, I'm in the camp, and I know I'm not going to be there for very long. My mother had commandeered a little brown paper bag. There were paper shortages, maybe some of you may remember, in 1946. And I didn't want a big grocery bag, and I didn't want a C&H sugar sack. I wanted my size bag, and my mother found one in the camp store, and she used to put her tacos in there, right? My tacos, eggs or whatever she could, the fish tacos or the bean tacos. And then I remember putting them under my jacket in the morning and feeling the warmth of mother's tacos, you know, as my way to school. And then I'd put it in the closet and wait at lunch. We'd go out, and the school had no cafeteria. Everybody brought their lunch. And I remember some of the kids were shocked that they had lunch pails, you know, at those days with Mickey Mouse emblazoned on the side. And here I had my poor little sack, you know, and this image, you know, of the sack that had been my mother's tacos suddenly made me feel ashamed, you know, because they had real lunch bags, real pails. And they'd opened it up, and they'd bring out 2 pieces of whiteboard. Oh, no, it's white bread. Oh, okay. Sandwiches, you know, with tomatoes and cheese. And then they had a cupcake sometimes, you know, and an apple or an orange. And A thermos? Wow, a thermos. I'd never seen a thermos in my life. Opened it up, and they pour out, well, Coke or milk or whatever, you know. Well, that made me even more ashamed. And Mama's dear little tacos looked sadder and sadder to me. And so I began to eat my tacos the way a wino drinks his wine, you know, on the side, halfway out the bag, you know, down here so they couldn't see me. And the kids would say, "What are you eating?" "No, nothing, nothing." "Let me see." "No, no, no, no." And then I looked at their sandwiches and I wondered what they're eating. Well, this went on for several days, and they kept looking at my tacos, and I kept looking at their sandwiches, and one day the inevitable happened. We exchanged lunches. And so the rest is Taco Bell history, you know. But I used to take my bag then, because this was my only possession, and fold it very carefully and bring it back to my mother. One day at the end of school, at the end of the school day, I couldn't find my bag. It's gone. And the teacher saw me running around. She said, "What is it?" And I told her, "Oh, a little brown paper bag." I said, "Yes, I took it." I said, "Well, give it back." And she says, "I can't." And so she escorted me into a little room in the back, and there was my bag, all ripped up, floating in a basin of water. Yeah, I thought the teacher had gone berserk. "Se volvió loca la maestra." You know what I mean? The teacher has gone berserk. But no, she said, "Wait a minute," and she reached in and grabbed a little piece of the brown paper bag, dipped it into some white paste, and then put it on a mold. For the first time I noticed, there's a mold, a clay mold. It's an animal. It's a monkey. And then she put another little piece and smoothed it out, another piece, smoothed it out. And she said, "Do you want to try it?" And so I said, "Yes." And so I tried it and put another. And at that moment, I discovered one of the secrets of the universe. It's called paper mache. Now, this is November, early November. I said, "It can't be for Halloween. What is this for?" And she said, "It's for a play. The whole school's involved, our Christmas play." And 2 first graders, the school band, is 8th graders, everybody's in it. But we need 2 first graders to play monkeys, because the play is about Christmas in the jungle. And so I forgave her about the bag, okay? I didn't want to, you know, curse my chances here. And so I auditioned and got my first role in the theater. A monkey, man. I could move. Now, I didn't know that then, that a monkey is a symbol of intelligence in the Mayan culture. And so, but I monkeyed away. I monkeyed away real good. And she was quite impressed. "Oh, you can really move." "Yeah, man, boom, boom, boom." And so I was happy. I was happy. We were rehearsing. I saw the old beat-up school auditorium being transformed. They brought in fake trees, you know, and I got a costume that was better than my own clothes, you know, a little red vest, little green pants, little tail, red shoes, a little hat, you know. Oh, it was amazing. And then teachers, the mask that she made from my mama's taco bag, boom. Oh, man, I saw myself in the mirror. I said, "Look at me. I'm larger than life," you know. So I was looking forward to my debut before the world on that little school stage. And then on a Tuesday, I went home, and my mom says, "We're leaving tomorrow." And I said, "But Mom, the play's on Friday." And she says, "It doesn't matter. We're being evicted." So she cried, and I cried with her. She cried, and she cried with me. And the next morning, you know, willy-nilly, my dad got the truck going, and we left. And the San Joaquin Valley fog hits very early in the fall. And so we drove through Stratford, this town up by the school, before it opened, because it was dawn, and I saw the school disappear into the fog. And I felt a hole open up in my chest. And, you know, it could have destroyed me. But I've always believed that any negative can be turned into a positive. So what happened is that hole became my well of inspiration. I took with me the secret of paper mache. I took with me an unrequited love for theater that was unfulfilled. It's lifelong. And 3, I took anger, righteous residual anger, because we had been evicted from the labor camp. Now that hole is still there. It's much smaller now. But for the last 70 years, I've been pouring poems, I've been pouring plays, screenplays in there, and it lives. It lives in there. But what the real change came about 20 years after that, when I went to Cesar Chavez and pitched him the idea for a theater of, by, and for farm workers. That's the fulfillment of that. Now, all of this is part of preparation. This was my preparation as a playwright. I made puppets out of paper mache. I started making puppets out of, well, we used to pick potatoes. And I noticed the potatoes are as varied as human faces, you know. Some of them have noses, some of them have eyes, you know. Potato eyes, literally, right? And I could put my finger and, oh, I got a puppet. Look at this, you know. And carrots, I used to do that with carrots. I did with eggplant. I could do this with plants. But paper mache really solved it. I could make puppets that lasted for a little bit longer. And then I became a ventriloquist. And we were in labor camps when I was just about into high school, performing with two dummies. One was, I had an old Jerry Mahoney dummy that someone had given to me, and I put a little mustache on him, a little goatee, you know, a little hat that said cool cat. See, he was an Anglo, but he had to be a cool Anglo, all right? And so he became my alter ego. I had that, and I could speak English. And then I had to have a Mexican side, so I created a puppet made of balsa wood, Marcelino Pipin, my Mexican side. And so on each knee, I would have two dummies, and I'd have a running dialogue. Okay, I'm 13, 14 at this time. And I'm performing around the campfire in labor camps. And I began to feel, well, if I can do that, I can put on plays out here. So that idea kind of took a root in my mind, and that became essentially the seed from which El Teatro Campesino sprang years later. I did go to college, obviously university, thank God, you know, I believe in higher education. You are my college of fellows, you know. And I believe in higher ed, man. It's the salvation. And if it has to be through the arts, let's go through the arts. It's a very important door. But for me then, I knew something about the history and the art of theater. I certainly was impressed by the theater of the 1930s, the socialist activist theater. And it was my privilege to have William Saroyan and John Howard Lawson, who was the founder of the Writers Guild in Hollywood and also a playwright, Broadway playwright, be my intellectual artistic godfathers. They saw my first play. I wrote a play called The Shrunken Head of Pancho Villa.
We've never done this before. Very eventful. We've never done it before. I'm not participating on the steering committee and not at all, but I'll have to get your information. That'd be great.
I'm very excited to be at this of the fellows, because I haven't been able to be here for a few years, and the advocacy work.
Is there a gym?
I wish we did, but you know how to spell my name? There's a Z in Susan. It's just or, you know, old laundry.
Granted, it was real access.
Everybody has this message. That ship has sailed.
The state of California, if it's going to take restrictions. You're 90.
Like a rippling effect of 9/11. A family member was killed in 9/11 in a play.
Or managing, something of that nature, just because this week made me realize how much I love doing this and how connected I am to theater. In 5 years, if I'm not doing something with theater, I'm doing it wrong. I want to be involved with it somehow.
I know, I have to look at everything.
It's 3 years prep, so it's
We just bought a home down in Oracle, outside of Tucson. My mom and dad and kids.
This is for the investiture of Michael D. Dinwiddie. As a teenager, Michael co-founded Detroit's Satori Theater. He now serves on the faculty of the Gallatin School of Individualized Study of New York University. He holds a BFA from Wayne State University and an MFA in dramatic writing from the Tisch School of the Arts, New York University. His career includes educator, playwright, screenwriter, director, scholar, and leader in the field of professional arts. He has specialized in courses in African American theater, dramatic writing, cultural studies, both nationally and internationally, and in directing. His teaching experience includes Argentina, St. Louis University, NYU Stony Brook, Florida A&M University, New York, Ghana, and the College of New Rochelle. As a writer, Dinwiddie's plays have been produced in regional and university theaters. He was fellow with the Walt Disney Writers Program and a writer on the comedy series Hanging with Mr. Cooper. He holds membership in the Writers Guild of America and the Dramatists Guild. Having lived in New York for many years, his writings emphasize the rich Harlem legacy in theater that is often overlooked in traditional historical documents. With a lengthy and diverse list of conference presentations, he has become an expert in cultural studies and was the keynote speaker at the International Organization for Migration at the University of South Bohemia in the Czech Republic. Michael's awards includes being a member of the National Governance Task Force of TCG, a Tony Award nominator 2007 to 2010, a Torchbearer Pioneer Award from Adelco, the Hal Youngblood Award, the Spirit Award from the National Black Theater Festival, and New York University's Distinguished Reaching Medal. He also chairs the board of the directors of the Duke Ellington Center for the Arts, is on the board of directors for New Federal Theater, and board of director member for Classical Theater of Harlem. One of the most important accomplishments was his election to the presidency of the Black Theater Network. Professor Dinwiddie represents a unique Renaissance man who combines intellectual scholarship and talented working artists. And he is especially proud to have mentored and nurtured dramatists whose works have won acclaim in theater, on television, and in film. The College of Fellows and me personally welcome Michael Dinwiddie into this organization.
Dr. Henry Bile, a faculty member at the University of Kansas since 2005, is currently a professor as well as Senior Associate Director of the University Honors Program. Previous assignments at the University of Kansas include Director, School of the Arts, and Associate Dean for International and Interdisciplinary Programs in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, as well as Chair of the Department of American Studies. He has made significant contributions to regional and national theater organizations, co-chairing a theater history symposium for MATC, serving on committees for ASTR and on the board of ATDS, being vice president of advocacy for ATHA, and presiding as president of ATHA from 2013 through 2015. He currently serves on the editorial boards of several academic journals. He himself is the author of several books, including Acting Jewish, Negotiating Ethnicity on the American Stage and Screen, The Performance Studies Reader, and most recently, Playing God, the Bible on the Broadway Stage, which received the John W. Frick Award from ATDS and the Byron Caldwell Smith Award for the best nonfiction book in any field, published by a Kansas resident in 2015 or 2016. He has published articles in TDR, Theater Topics, and the Journal of American Drama and Theater, as well as several book chapters. He has co-edited Theater Historiography, Critical Interventions, as well as a Brecht sourcebook. He has been a guest lecturer at Harvard, University of Washington, Baruch College, Converse College, South Baptist University, University of Georgia, and the University of Wisconsin. I'm very proud and honored to be able to induct Henry Bile into our College of Fellows.
From the beginning of his career, it was clear Dr. William J. Doan was a man of prodigious talents and skills in the areas of teaching, scholarship, and administration. Now a prominent and well-respected academic leader for over 30 years, he has held the titles Dean, Associate Provost, Chair, Director, and Professor of Theater. He was 2012-13 President of the Association of Theater and Higher Education. Dr. Doan's publications include 3 books with his collaborator Terry Giles. A published poet. Of those poems, one reviewer wrote, "Doan's poems remind me of both Finnegan's Wake and The Simpsons. They gnaw at the emptied hope found in double-wide debt, class realities, brutish fathers, and unscrupulous bankers. The familiar chanted rhythm of prayer is a frayed nylon fire rope for all confined to the dictated lives of their class." Another wrote, "Doan's voice is entirely his own, down to earth yet transcendent, raw yet incandescent." A third wrote, "Readers will come away from this work convinced poetry is a form of social action." Dr. Doan previously explored these themes in solo performance work that has also transferred into graphic novel form. As theater historian and fellow Don Wilmoth wrote about the rise of dramatic monologists in the 1980s, audiences come to autobiography for direct connection and great stories. Dr. Doan's distinct voice continues to find a dedicated and expanding audience for his particular style of storytelling. It is with great pride that I present poet, professor, artist, historian, author, activist, Dr. Bill Doan to the College of Fellows of the American Theater.
This is for the induction of Edgar Dobie, seconded by Thomas Schumacher and William Ivy Long. Edgar Dobie began his career as a champion of the playwright as founding managing director for the New Play Center in Vancouver, Canada. He's been a leading force in nurturing and producing groundbreaking new work that has extended from Canada to Broadway and throughout the world. His commitment to regional theater began as managing director at the National Arts Centre in Ottawa, and later the Canadian Stage Company in Toronto, the largest regional theater in Canada. They're dedicated to the work of Canadian and contemporary playwrights. In 1988, Edgar became founding vice president of the live entertainment division of Cineplex Odeon in Toronto, building and operating the 2,200-seat theater, the Pantages. He produced The Phantom of the Opera, the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber, and then transitioned to New York as president of Webber's Really Useful Company. In 1998, Edgar founded his own independent production company, producing The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Paul Simon's The Cape Man, and representing Riverdance in North America, and producing the 1999 and 2000 Tony Awards. In 2001, Edgar became managing director of Trinity Rep in Providence, Rhode Island, continuing his passion to create original productions while offering a broad range of education, training, and postgraduate programs for actors and directors in partnership with Brown University. In 2006, Edgar joined the River Dream Company, an international theater, film, and television production company known for its stage show Riverdance. Now Edgar Dobie has returned to his first love, regional theater, as executive director of Arena Stage, solidifying his position as a leader of American regional theater. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Edgar Dobie.
This is for Catherine M. Irving. Irving began her theatrical career as a teenager when she co-founded with Michael Dinwiddie the Satori Theater in Detroit. She went on to receive her BFA from Wayne State University and MFA in directing from Illinois State University. In 1989, California State University San Bernardino hired Kathy, and over the past 29 years, she has created a distinguished career. Irving's department elected her chair on 3 separate occasions. During her tenure, the department greatly expanded its diversity enrollment, making CSU San Bernardino one of the most ethnically diverse departments in the CSU system. Under Irving's leadership, her department created the only MA degree in theater education that allowed elementary and secondary teachers to get advanced degrees. Kathy's extensive work with the California Arts Project as both a coordinator and faculty member has provided her an opportunity to teach as well as learn from public school teachers. Irving's directing credits include numerous productions at San Bernardino as well as productions at LA's Atwater Village Theater, Los Angeles Theater Center, UC Riverside, University of Louisville, and Illinois State University. Her peers recognize her as an innovative visionary who is not afraid to think outside the box, whether in analysis, casting, or staging. Kathy co-edited the African American Scene Book, a bibliography of scenes from the African American theater, Adrian Kennedy's Funny House of a Negro Masterpiece 2, and numerous journal articles. Her conference presentations include the African Studies Association, the African Theater Association International, Association for Theater and Higher Education, Black Theater Network, the Global Diasporas in Southern California, and the National Theater on African American Theater. Her research in hip-hop theater, sexual orientation, and gender identity in Black theater, cross-casting, and multicultural theater demonstrate her awareness of contemporary and often controversial issues. She is a founding member, past president, and consultant to the Black Theater Network, and was awarded the 2017 Region 8 Gold Medallion for the American College Theater Festival. Irving is a superstar at CSU San Bernardino, a leader and a visionary in California educational theater, an exceptionally talented artist to those who work with, and a treasure to the African American theater community. I'm so proud to welcome Catherine Irving into the College of Fellows of the American Theater Association.
During 3.5 decades in higher education, Dr. Brant Pope has established himself as a leader in the fields of actor training and university administration, and in each of these capacities, he has led some of the country's most respected programs. He is also a director and author of note. His enormous gifts were evident from his student days, where he earned the BA, MA, MFA, and PhD, pursuing a solid base in the liberal arts, the artistic bona fides of the MFA, and the scholarly acumen of the PhD. His career achievements have been distinguished by bringing this rich background of knowledge, artistry, craft, and intellect to all he pursues. He came to national prominence as head of the Florida State University Oslo Conservatory for Professional Actor Training and Associate Artistic Director of the Oslo Theater. After a short time as the head of the department at the University of Illinois, he became the chair of the Department of Theater and Dance at the University of Texas at Austin, where he heads one of the country's most comprehensive and celebrated theater programs. Professor Pope is a preeminent expert in actor training with particular expertise in the problematic area of moving students from improvisation to scripted material. Though his administrative activities preclude his full-time participation in the classroom, we are fortunate that his work lives on through his former students, his scholarly contributions to the field, and his extensive impact on the University Resident Theater Association, including 2 terms as president. It is my privilege and pleasure to present Dr. Brant Pope for induction to the College of Fellows of the American Theater.
Diane Rodriguez is the Associate Artistic Director of Los Angeles' Center Theater Group, otherwise known as the Mark Taper Forum, and a nationally and internationally recognized producer, playwright, director, and Obie Award-winning actor. Early in her career, she performed throughout the U.S. and abroad for several years with the Teatro Campesino. In 1985, she became the founder of the critically acclaimed Latins Anonymous. In 1995, Diane became the director of the Latino Theater Initiative of the Center Theater Group. In 2005, Diane was appointed associate producer of new play production for the Center Theater Group. Charged with developing work by and about Latinos and all audiences, she has commissioned a veritable who's who of emerging and emerged playwrights. Affirming Diane's impact and import, her work has been the focus of significant scholarly articles and books. At the national level, Diane served as a trustee for the Theater Communications Group from 2008 to 2016 and was elected twice to serve as president of the board. In 2016, she was appointed by President Obama to sit on the National Council of the Arts. In 2017, Diane directed and premiered her latest play, The Sweetheart Deal, at the Los Angeles Theater Center, and she will direct Culture Clash's Border Town Now at the Pasadena Playhouse this season. She continues to be a national and, she continues, that's not adding words, is it? She continues, she continues to be national spokeswoman of courage and commitment to the nation's theatrical and artistic communities, an unwavering advocate for the diversification of our theaters by changing who we see in our hallways, on our stages, and in our audiences. It is an honor to induct Diane Rodriguez to the College of Ballet.
David Saar is a magician. He can turn a bunch of actors into a premier theater ensemble, an abandoned school building into a campus for imagination and wonder, and a personal tragedy into art. In his 39 years as artistic director of Child's Play in Tempe, Arizona, David and his artistic associates have built one of the premier TYA companies in the United States, and they have done so by keeping a core company of actors and artists together for almost 30 years. They have also maintained artistic excellence, commissioned new work, developed new plays, playwrights, encouraged innovative design, providing educational and outreach opportunities of the highest caliber. The growth of his company has been phenomenal, culminating in the building of $1 million campus, $2 million campus actually, for $5 million campus. It's going up, guys, it's going up, and so's my word count. All right. A campus for imagination and wonder. Child's Play has commissioned new plays from the leading playwrights of our field, including fellows Jose Cruz Gonzalez and James Still. Last year, David received the Campton Bell Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Association of Theater and Education. He's also received 3 Governor's Arts Awards. Drawing from the devastating loss of his son Benjamin to AIDS in the early 1980s, David's play, The Yellow Boat, transformed tragedy into a transcendent work of art and changed the landscape of dramatic literature for young people. It has been widely produced, heralded as a classic, studied in colleges and universities, but most important, The Yellow Boat has changed the lives of artists and audiences, serving as a beacon of hope and inspiration for children and adults. David Saar is an artist of consummate skill, a deeply decent human being, admired as much for his humor as his generosity. It is an honor to welcome David Saar.
Sandra Shannon is a superb and prolific scholar and a leader in the field of African American theater and performance. Professor Shannon is one of the most respected and productive Wilson scholars in academia today. Her important critical biography, The Dramatic Vision of August Wilson, provided a grounding for future Wilson scholarship and was the first work to draw a relationship between Wilson's personal experience and memories of his creation of his 20th century African American history cycle. Her published collection of critical essays, August Wilson and Black Aesthetics, brings together a variety of scholars to examine how Wilson's dramaturgy reflects on or transcends past and present paradigms and theories of Black cultural expression. She has also published articles on Wilson in a wide variety of scholarly journals and edited anthologies. Perhaps equally important, Shannon has undertaken a variety of projects directed at making resources of Wilson scholarship more accessible and more readily available to scholars and students. Shannon provided a rigorous, detailed annotated biography on Wilson for the Wilson Collection edited by Alan Nadell, May All Your Fences Have Gates. Her August Wilson Fences, a reference guide, serves as a comprehensive source for scholars, teachers, and theater practitioners approaching this Pulitzer Prize-winning play and playwright. Along with Sandra Richards, she edited Approaches to Teaching Plays of August Wilson, which serves as a great resource for teachers. The current president of the August Wilson Society, Shannon's approach to the playwright Wilson has been thoroughly comprehensive, particularly insightful, and extremely thought-provoking. In addition to her work on August Wilson, Sandra Shannon has built a national and international reputation in the field of Black theater and in Black theater studies more generally, and in theater studies more generally. She served as the editor of the important journal on theory and practice, Theater Topics, as well as the president of the Black Theater Network. As a scholar, editor, administrator, Sandra Shannon has made an indelible mark on American and African American theater studies. It is my honor to induct her into the College of Fellows of the American Theater. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce the illustrious fellow, David Leong.
Hi, everyone. So this is always I love this because we really dig in and like to learn about who our new inductees are. So I have my wife and I were on a vacation, a little home away from home in Annapolis, Maryland, and it was raining one night, so we were flipping through. You know how sometimes people leave books and games and stuff like that. So there was a little deck of sort of cards, and it was a game called Who Are You? And I thought, oh wow, so I started flipping them over, and it was they were probing questions that would reveal who you are as a human being. So then I adapted those questions for leaders.
I think in this context, the hardest thing that I've ever done, and it's hard every single time, is to write anything. Just doing battle with that blank page is terrifying, and it doesn't matter how many articles or books or whatever it is. It's actually worse, I think, after you've published a little more, because now you know someone's actually going to read what you're putting down on this page, and it's sort of much more terrifying than when it's just like, oh, this is just my dissertation, no one's going to pay attention to this. You know, every one of these projects, just starting them is torture.
Thank you.
Okay, what is the biggest personal change you have experienced between the age of 21 and now? Losing my hair? One of the things you find out after 21 is that every time you eat something, it stays with you. At 21, I moved to New York City, and that was a big change. And now, after 40-some years in New York, a big change for me is I'm ready to go somewhere else. And that's a major change, because I loved living in New York for 40-some years, but at this stage in my life, I've enjoyed it. It's been a great experience, but now I'm ready to have a different pace of life.
Having done this exercise, this kind of, it's all over the globe actually, and there's these luminaries and major leaders and all that, and when we get up and leave from the table, sometimes they say, those little nuggets that were revealed at this mean more to me, because instead of bio and all the accolades. So anyway, I want to thank you, everyone, for sharing these things, and it's just joyful and fun for us to get to know you in a different way. So
Thank you. What fear would you like to conquer? I quite often, fear the future. I stay up at night, I wake up, I don't sleep very well, and I fear for how I will age. I fear of knowing the right time to stop, where I'm not. I fear not knowing when I'm going to be in the way. That's a big fear, because I still have, I believe, many years to give. But then there's these amazing people in front of me, behind me, that need to have their moment, and so I think that's the biggest fear.
Nice, thank you.
It's kind of terrifying. I'm going to get the one that says, "When did you meet Stormy Daniels?" or something. What personality trait has gotten you in the most trouble?
See? He knew which question to ask, right? It's like Jeopardy.
It is like Jeopardy. I think that usually our best thing then flipped is our worst thing, and I think because I'm ambitious and I think sometimes visionary, I'm impatient and impulsive, and I think that my impatience, both myself and with others, has I think has led to the regrets that I've had in my life, I would say.
Okay. What do you most worry about? Okay, what do I worry about? I don't really worry a lot. I take each day at a time. I'm not sure whether you call it worry. I worry about not being prepared. I try as much as possible to be prepared for any scenario, including this one. Because I did not know what to expect. I worry about the unexpected, and it's that gap between the unexpected and trying to prepare for the unexpected. We can't control life, no matter how much we try, but I give it my best shot. Thank you.
Who are you? Upside down. What is the bravest or most courageous thing you've ever done? I didn't go into a burning building. Well, I sort of did. It's riding the yellow boat. I was terrified, but I'm not a playwright. I'm a director. But there was no one else except Sonia and I to write it. And so, with a lot of help from my friends and a lot of places over 3.5 years, helped me keep my courage up, and insisted that I finish, and sometimes didn't feed me until I gave them pages. Susan. It's true. Locked in her den, and I didn't get dinner till I gave her pages. But yeah, dramaturgy. That's the short answer. Yeah, I was terrified, and yet I knew I had to do it. To recognize the power and imagination and knowledge that exist in Benjamin, but also in all young people, and the need to share this in the hopes that other people will recognize it and celebrate these young people before they're dying. That's it.
Oh, what is your greatest need? Someone to clean my garage. Does that count? Seriously, a formula for organization, I think, is the thing that I, if there were a magic thing that you could pull something out of that would satisfy your need, it would be something that would put those little things in place in a way that makes sense. That would make me happy.
What single difficult experience in your life has made you a stronger person? I knew I was going to get a question. In 2012, I'll just do this very briefly, my sister suffered a severe traumatic brain injury and spent 2 years in a vegetative state, at the end of which our family had to make the decision to withdraw her from artificial nutrition, hydration, and let her go. During those 2 years, I also knew that it was time for me to be in my work, in my creative work as a solo performer and a writer, to be honest about living with anxiety and depression. And all of those things merged together at once. And it was the support of family, friends, my wife, and others who both encouraged the work and encouraged me to live in that true self that made me stronger.
So thank you very much. Let's, again, moving this along. So again, thank you for your honesty and for all the emerging artists coming up. I hope you value this, what's happening today, because it's really powerful.